Canada's contribution to horror doesn't end with one list. There's always another layer hidden in the snow. From chilling psychological stories to backwoods nightmares and urban legends, Canadian filmmakers kept pushing boundaries with bold ideas and a distinctly northern tone. Tonight, we're diving back into the world of Canadian horror. 10 more films that prove the country's legacy runs deeper than most realize. If you've got a favorite Canadian horror movie that deserves more attention, drop it in the comments below. We might just include it next time. My Bloody Valentine, 1981. The mining town of Valentine Bluffs carries a dark secret beneath its blue-collar exterior. 20 years ago, a tragic mining accident led to a series of Valentine's Day murders, forcing the town to cancel its traditional holiday dance. Now, as young miners decide to revive the celebration, someone in full mining gear is making sure history repeats itself. What sets My Bloody Valentine apart is its authentic working-class setting. Unlike other slashers set in summer camps or suburbia, this film digs into the gritty reality of a mining community. The characters feel genuine. These aren't stereotypical teenagers, but hardworking miners dealing with real relationships and responsibilities. The film takes time to show the actual workings of the mine, making the setting a character in itself. The killer's outfit, complete with gas mask, helmet, and pickaxe, creates one of horror's most distinctive silhouettes. There's something primal about the way the breathing apparatus echoes through the tunnels, turning a familiar piece of safety equipment into an instrument of terror. The mining gear isn't just a costume, it's a symbol of how the town's lifeblood is turned against its people. Director George Mihalka uses the claustrophobic mine tunnels to masterful effect. The darkness isn't just for atmosphere, it's a workplace hazard these characters deal with daily. When the kills come, they're brutal and inventive, using mining equipment in ways that would make OSHA representatives faint. The film's original cut was heavily censored, but even the trimmed version maintains its impact through suggestion and staging. The Valentine's Day setting isn't just a holiday gimmick. It ties into themes of love, betrayal, and the way trauma echoes through generations. The town's attempt to reclaim joy becomes a catalyst for violence, while candy heart motifs take on sinister new meanings. My Bloody Valentine brings class consciousness to the slasher genre, creating a horror film that's as much about community identity and industrial trauma as it is about creative kills. It proves that sometimes the scariest monsters come from the everyday world of hard work and harder choices. The Brood, 1979. The Brood is a chilling horror film directed by David Cronenberg, released in 1979. This 92-minute film delves into the disturbing realms of psychological horror and body horror, showcasing Cronenberg's signature style. The story revolves around Nola Carveth, played by Samantha Eggar, who undergoes an unconventional therapy led by the enigmatic Dr. Hal Raglan, portrayed by Oliver Reed. As Nola processes her emotional trauma, she gives birth to a group of deformed children who manifest her rage and pain, leading to a series of brutal murders. With an IMDb rating of 6.8, The Brood explores themes of motherhood, trauma, and the psychological effects of abuse. The film's unsettling atmosphere is heightened by its innovative special effects and stark cinematography, creating a sense of dread that lingers long after viewing. Cronenberg's exploration of the mind-body connection is both provocative and disturbing, making this film a powerful commentary on the complexities of human emotion. The performances, particularly by Eggar and Reed, are compelling, adding depth to this harrowing narrative. The Brood is not just a horror film. It's a unique exploration of the darker aspects of human nature, making it a must-watch for fans of psychological thrillers and horror alike. If you're in the mood for a film that challenges perceptions of family and trauma, this one is definitely worth a look. Funeral Home, 1980. When a young woman named Heather spends the summer helping her grandmother at a rural bed and breakfast, she soon realizes the quiet house hides disturbing secrets. The property was once a funeral home, and despite her grandmother's insistence that those days are long gone, strange noises, whispered conversations, and sudden disappearances suggest otherwise. As Heather digs deeper, she uncovers a mystery that puts her directly in the path of a hidden killer. Directed by William Fruet, Funeral Home, also known as Cries in the Night, is a Canadian horror film that mixes Gothic atmosphere with slasher conventions. Leslie Donaldson, known for her Scream Queen roles in Curtains and Happy Birthday to Me, stars as Heather, bringing vulnerability and determination to the role. Kay Hawtrey gives a standout performance as the grandmother, whose stern exterior conceals layers of unease and menace. The film makes effective use of its setting, creaking floorboards, shadowy hallways, and the ever-present reminder of the house's mortuary past. The murders are staged with restraint compared to other slashers of the era, focusing more on suspense and mystery than gore, but the slow-burn pacing leads to a shocking reveal that gives the film its lasting impact. What sets Funeral Home apart is its blending of styles. It borrows the isolated house suspense of Gothic thrillers while leaning into the masked killer formula that was dominating the early 80s. The result is a film that feels familiar yet distinct, carving out its own quiet corner in horror history. Though it never gained the notoriety of other Canadian slashers, Funeral Home lingers as a moody, atmospheric entry from 1980, one that rewards viewers who enjoy their horror with mystery, shadows, and a final sting of tragedy. The Brain, 1988. In the suburbs of Canada, a small-town TV station hides something monstrous behind its glowing screen. Dr. Blake, the charismatic host of a self-help program called Independent Thinkers, claims he can cure society's ills through the power of positive messaging. But behind his soothing words lies a grotesque secret, a pulsating, ever-growing alien brain that feeds on fear, hallucinations, and human obedience. The Brain is a wild cocktail of sci-fi paranoia and gooey creature horror. At first, it feels like a quirky satire of media manipulation. But once the brain itself takes center stage, the film dives headfirst into practical effects mayhem. Tentacles lash out, faces warp in psychedelic hallucinations, and the monster grows larger and more grotesque with every feeding. It's absurd and chilling in equal measure, leaning on rubber and latex nightmares that only the 1980s could deliver. The imagery is unforgettable. Teenagers trapped in warped visions, townsfolk behaving like hypnotized drones, and the brain's throbbing mass looming over it, all like some unholy idol. The film uses these moments to turn television itself into a weapon, suggesting that control doesn't always come from a gun or a knife, but from what flickers in our living rooms. Beyond its schlocky thrills, the Brain taps into real anxieties about manipulation, conformity, and the ease with which people surrender their will to a trusted authority. It's a sharp idea wrapped in the skin of a drive-in monster flick, managing to be both entertaining and slyly pointed. Though often overlooked, The Brain has earned cult status for its inventive effects and sheer audacity. It's a film that proves horror doesn't need to make perfect sense to leave a mark. Sometimes all it takes is a giant, mind-controlling brain staring you down. Visiting Hours, 1982. After a televised debate where journalist Deborah Ballin takes a firm stand on women's rights, she attracts the attention of a violent stalker. Brutally attacked in her own home, she survives and is rushed to the hospital. But her nightmare is only beginning. The attacker isn't finished, and as Deborah struggles to recover, the hospital itself becomes the hunting ground for a relentless killer. Directed by Jean-Claude Lord, Visiting Hours is a Canadian slasher that leans into suspense and atmosphere as much as gore. Lee Grant stars as Deborah, bringing strength and vulnerability to a role that grounds the film in realism. Michael Ironside is chilling as the disturbed killer, delivering one of his most unsettling performances, while William Shatner appears in a smaller but memorable role as Deborah's network producer. The sterile hospital setting gives the film a unique edge. Bright hallways and bustling wards become spaces of dread once the killer begins stalking them. The tension builds not just through the attacks, but through the constant unease that nowhere feels safe. What makes Visiting Hours endure is its cast. Grant and Ironside's dynamic elevates the material, turning what could have been a standard stalk and slash into something far more intense. The cat-and-mouse pacing keeps the danger ever present, while the performances give it weight. While it didn't gain the mainstream recognition of other 1982 slashers, Visiting Hours thrived on cable and VHS, remembered for its strong leads and unnerving realism. It remains one of the decade's more distinctive thrillers, balancing exploitation with a surprising amount of gravitas. The Changeling, 1980. The Changeling is a chilling supernatural thriller released in 1980, directed by Peter Medak. The story centers around John Russell, portrayed by George C. Scott. After the tragic loss of his wife and daughter, John seeks solace in a secluded mansion, hoping to escape his grief. But what he finds instead is a different kind of torment. As John settles in, he begins to experience unsettling phenomena: strange noises, ghostly apparitions, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The atmosphere is thick with tension, drawing the viewer deeper into the mystery. Determined to understand what's happening, John investigates the mansion's dark past. He uncovers a tragic story involving a tormented child, leading to a harrowing confrontation with the supernatural. Joining John on his journey is Claire Norman, played by Trish Van Devere. Together, they delve into the mansion's secrets, unraveling a haunting tale that intertwines love, loss, and vengeance. The film also features Melvyn Douglas as Professor Bennington, who assists John in piecing together the chilling history of the mansion. Douglas's performance adds depth to the narrative, enhancing the emotional stakes. The Changeling is renowned for its atmospheric tension and masterful storytelling. It creates a palpable sense of fear without relying on excessive gore or jump scares, making it a standout in the horror genre. Though not as widely recognized as other horror classics, The Changeling has earned a dedicated cult following. It received nominations for several awards, including a Saturn Award for Best Actor for George C. Scott. With its eerie atmosphere and emotional depth, The Changeling remains a powerful exploration of grief and the supernatural. If you haven't seen it yet, prepare for a haunting experience that lingers long after the credits roll. The Vindicator, 1986. When scientist Carl Lehman is betrayed and killed in a lab accident, his employers don't let death end his usefulness. They resurrect him as a cybernetic experiment, half man, half machine, designed as a weapon. But when Carl's human emotions survive the transformation, he rebels against his creators and seeks revenge, leaving a trail of destruction as he struggles to regain his humanity. Directed by Jean-Claude Lord, The Vindicator is a Canadian production that sits somewhere between RoboCop and Frankenstein. David McElraith stars as Carl, trapped inside the armored body that both empowers and imprisons him. Pam Grier appears as a ruthless corporate agent tasked with hunting him down, adding star power and menace to the cast. The film thrives on its mix of sci-fi and horror elements. The Vindicator suit is bulky and intimidating, a practical creation that makes Carl look both powerful and tragic. The violence is unflinching as Carl lashes out at those who wronged him, but the story also leans into themes of loss, betrayal, and identity. On VHS, The Vindicator stood out thanks to its striking cover art of the armored figure and its promise of high-tech carnage. While overshadowed by bigger-budget studio films, it found a loyal audience who embraced its pulpy mix of revenge thriller and sci-fi horror. Today, it's remembered as a cult curiosity, a Canadian answer to the wave of techno-horror films of the 80s, fueled by equal parts outrage, pathos, and mechanical mayhem. Spasms, 1983. A wealthy man plagued by terrifying visions brings a deadly secret back to North America, a psychic connection to a massive supernatural snake. When the Serpent is captured for study and inevitably breaks free, its rampage leaves a trail of mutilated victims, each attack mirrored in the man's tormented mind. Directed by William Fruet, Spasms combines creature-feature thrills with psychic horror. Oliver Reed plays Jason Kinski, the cursed millionaire, while Peter Fonda lends a quieter presence as Dr. Tom Brazilian, the scientist desperate to understand the link. Both men elevate the material, their performances grounding the film's wilder ideas. The creature itself is ambitious for its budget, With point-of-view shots, bloody aftermaths, and flashes of the giant snake brought to life through practical effects, the film delivers moments of grisly spectacle. The kills are vicious, leaving mangled corpses in their wake, and the psychic bond adds a surreal layer as man and monster spiral toward destruction. On video shelves, Spasms was hard to ignore. Its unforgettable cover art promised reptilian mayhem, and the presence of two major stars gave it instant cult appeal. While uneven, the film remains a fascinating mix of exploitation excess and star-driven horror. Today it survives as one of the stranger hybrids of the decade, where animal attack thrills meet supernatural paranoia. Humongous, 1982. A group of young friends sets out on a boating trip, only to be stranded after a crash leaves them marooned on a fog-shrouded island. At first the place seems deserted, but they soon learn it hides a terrifying secret. Years earlier, a violent assault led to the birth of a deformed child, raised in isolation and grown into a hulking killer. Now fully grown, the monstrous figure stalks the island, turning the survivors' fight to escape into a desperate struggle against a near-inhuman foe. Directed by Paul Lynch, best known for Prom Night, Humongous combines Canadian slasher grit with a backwoods monster setup. The cast includes Janet Julian, David Wallace, and Janet Baldwin, all playing teens whose carefree getaway collapses into bloody terror. The performances give just enough personality to make the hunt across the island tense and memorable. The setting is one of the film's strongest assets. The dense forests, rocky shorelines, and abandoned mansion create a Gothic isolation, while the night scenes drench the island in shadow. When the creature appears, the practical effects lean into brute force. Kills are messy, sudden, and brutal. What makes Humongous stand out is the atmosphere. It's less about slick kills and more about the dread of being hunted by something unnatural in an environment you can't escape. The pacing is slower than some slashers, but it builds into a final confrontation that pays off the island's ominous lore. Humongous never matched the notoriety of Paul Lynch's Prom Night, but it carved its own reputation as a bleak, creature-driven slasher. Fans of survival horror embraced it for its atmosphere and isolated setting, making it a staple of late-night VHS marathons. Black Roses, 1988. The quiet town of Mill Basin isn't ready for what's about to hit its high school auditorium. A new heavy metal band called Black Roses rolls into town, promising thunderous riffs, wild shows, and the kind of energy that gets teenagers flocking to every performance. But behind the music lies something far more sinister. The band isn't just here to melt faces, they're here to claim souls. Black Roses is pure late 80s excess, fusing horror and heavy metal into a headbanging fever dream. The setup feels almost innocent, with skeptical parents and curious kids, but once the amps get cranked, reality starts to warp. Students fall under the spell of the music, their personalities changing, their darkest impulses surfacing. It's rock and roll possession at its loudest and most outrageous. The film doesn't hold back on visuals. Rubber-suited monsters erupting from speakers, surreal transformations mid-guitar solo, and gooey practical effects that embody the era's love for over-the-top spectacle. One minute you're watching a glam metal concert, the next you're in the middle of a demonic feeding frenzy. The concert sequences themselves are a blast, capturing the sweaty, neon-lit energy of the time before turning it into a nightmare. Beneath the leather, smoke, and pyrotechnics, Black Roses is a morality tale dressed in spikes. It taps into the anxieties of the Satanic Panic era, where music was feared as a corrupting influence, and pushes that fear into literal monster territory. The result is campy, outrageous, and deeply entertaining, especially for anyone who loves both horror and metal. Black Roses doesn't just play loud, it screams shreds and claws its way into cult classic territory. It's the kind of movie that proves sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's lurking in the dark. It's what's blasting from your stereo. That's another chapter in the story of Canadian horror. From eerie folklore to VHS-era obscurities, these films remind us just how much creativity can thrive in the cold. They might not have had Hollywood budgets, but their atmosphere, ambition, and originality more than made up for it. Which one stood out to you most? Let us know in the comments, and if you want to help support Eject Media and keep these discoveries coming, consider joining the channel membership for early access, exclusive polls, and behind-the-scenes extras. Hit like, subscribe, and remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is someone's favorite.